It's finally time to start firing up the grill. From city to shore, Acme is everything you need to prep for this summer season. Download the Acme app to shop for this season's essentials any way you want. Open the Acme app, clip your deals, then order your items online. An experienced Acme associate will carefully select your groceries, bag your order, and bring it right to your car or deliver right to your door. Download the app or visit acmemarkets.com for program details.
Hi there, I am Adem Kirbas. I'm here in Ordu in Turkey. We are still in the pandemic. I read the news. This looks indeed dire. The cases of COVID, they are rising. Despite the fact that we are in the second year, so it does not seem to this virus doesn't seem to be abating. And I hope that you all are doing fine now. We will try to get through this, or hope that we will get through this. Of course, those people who are responsible, whatever it is. I hope that you are all good. However, we will now continue after this break on Sunday, and we talked about hate. I think I probably need to explain this further, because we said hate is not temporary. Hate grows through the time. Hate is something which does not happen abruptly, because then if you, for example, see something disgusting, I don't know, like filth or whatever, then you will averse it, but hate goes beyond this. Hate is always some sort of a dislike of being, and hate therefore is nothing. We have shown it in social experiments, in object relations, that hate is something that lasts, that hate is something that goes beyond. But hate, of course, seems something extreme as well, because you do not hate at once. Something hate needs time to develop. And for this, or in another way, how we can come around this or further open up the analysis, we said we need some sort of a middle path between aversion. Aversion is the mere avoidance of something. This means I don't see an identity. This is what we discovered. This is very important, that we said that with hate, or with anything that goes beyond aversion, there is your identity involved, and this plays a crucial part, because it construes not only your identity as well as the other identity, and this is where we come. And hate is in that sense pretty much extreme, because you pretty much dislike the being, especially if you think that it is in a way morally harmful to you in any sense, whatever, especially if you think about sins, sins or anything noxious. This is always your perception, as well as you need to have an understanding of what is good or right, in order to understand that it is harmful to you or not. So this goes beyond just pardon me, this goes beyond just your perception. This goes beyond just you perceive something. This is indeed a big issue in philosophy as well as in psychology, and this means that in order to preserve yourself from, let's say, from any bad, and I would say rather morally bad, whatever, or especially ethically bad, you have to have an understanding of good and bad, or at least you have to have thought about it. If you read the Bible, or if you, whatever you do, if you see what happens in the world, or if you have experienced a lot of disturbing things in the world, then you build up your mind. This goes over a period of time, and you some sort of use your brain cells to understand what's good, what's bad, that you come to this conclusion. For example, if you read the Bible, you have to think about it. You have to absorb it. If you read the Quran, the Torah, whatever it is, you have to think about it. What is good, what is bad, what in order to come to a moral conclusion. So this needs more than just your instant choice. This is what we will talk about it later. So it goes beyond your moral judgments. This goes beyond what you think. Well, this is personally true for yourself, moral or ethical judgments. They always go beyond your being, beyond your existence. This is something you assume, you perceive that this is generally true. For example, the good of something, the good of an idea, or whatever it is, the good of a situation, of a circumstance, of a being. This goes always beyond your existence. This is always and it goes beyond your choice, and you have to have thought about it. And this is why we have to apply this to hate as well, because hate is something, it may be a danger. We came to the conclusion, if I'm exposed to a situation, whatever, then of course I will avoid it, especially if I don't reckon with it. I mean, we live in the 21st century. We said we do not live in this dangerous societies anymore, but if you are, for example, you don't have to fear for your life anymore. However, but and in our time, especially with social media, you rather fear that you are being exposed, that you are being humiliated, whatever, and this fear, and this then leads to fear. And if you fear being exposed to such a situation, then you have to go on a planning. Then you will, of course, make arrangements, plans to avoid this situation for what reason, whatever, and therefore it is not instantly, and this is where we said that we assume. I mean, this is again, we assume this. We don't know. Is we are still inquiring. We are still, as you want, asking questions. We do not know what hate really is. So we slowly approach it. And we said that there is a difference between a linguistic definition and a philosophic definition. And here right now we try to come closer to that, try to understand this, and therefore we said assumably, because if I fear something, I make long-term plans to avoid it, or I think about it longer. If I have moral principles, then hopefully I do not read them off my cereal package, but rather have thought about it. I mean, if you read the Bible, the Quran, Torah, whatever it is, then you have to think about it. These are meaningful words, no matter what people say or not say, as well as ethical. If you have witnessed a lot of issues in this world, and then you come to an ethical explanation, then of course you have to have thought about it. And so in order to make this understandable, so we will argue, that's why we argue that hate must be something longer lasting. You have to thought about it, because this is indeed a very strong feeling, that you do not dislike the being, that you hate the existence of something, that you do not like the existence of something, because you could just avoid it. I mean, like we said, a situation, but this is not. But what we need to inquire further in this issue is identity. What has to do with this? What does it have to do with identity? Because we somehow noticed this is some sort of still hazy, shady. How can we make a connection to identity, despite the fact that we saw it has to do with yourself? Because only think about the fact, if you are being exposed to an embarrassing situation, if you are being exposed to a situation, whatever, which may be more than harmful, and harmful in that sense. I mean, we should not think about this issue like I don't know, some teenagers who would be in a way feel embarrassed of being not like whatever, but especially in our time where reputation plays a crucial part, and how you are being perceived. I mean, this can mean especially whether you get a job, whether you get any favorable promotion or whatever. So in that sense, some fear can be of course reasonable. Or if you, for example, fear that you may make a mistake, or that you fear that you act wrongly, or whatever, this can, and there are a lot of examples in history that this can then lead to you being inactive or doing whatever, doing nothing or doing the wrong thing, whatever. So fear is a very strong emotion, and it can lead human brains to act in that way, not what is expected to. And therefore we will some sort of introduce a new word to our thinking, where we try to figure out, hey, this is anger. Anger is something, again, I looked it up at Google. Anger is a strong feeling of displeasure and usually antagonism. I mean, the word antagonism is very important in this definition, because we again said that identity plays a crucial role. This is where we assume that then now here we see antagonism plays as well as a crucial part in anger towards something. And antagonism would then mean that it is me against them. And in order to feel anger in that sense, this is a definition from Merriam-Webster. So it's not Google. Pardon me. This is a definition from of the website Merriam-Webster. However, and this means that anger comes with your knowledge that you are different in that sense, and this goes, I think, beyond the psychoanalysis, especially the psychoanalysis, which partially, especially for analyzing children, or it goes beyond the perception of the hate, what probably, according to the psychoanalysis, children I can feel, because children, or babies for that matter, assumably do not have any separation between them and the object. They do not perceive themselves as different. However, in that sense here, anger is very important, because it comes with an antagonism. It feels displeasure, of course, but the important thing is that is antagonism, that you separate yourself from the object, that this is part of your identity, and then you see this other object, as well as this other person, object, whatever it is, as something different to do, as well as something opposed to your belief, or whatever, to your world understanding, whatever. But what is important is that we right now do not have some sort of the hate of the existence, or that you dislike the existence of something, but this is rather really this pleasure of an antagonism, that there is this opposite figure. And then if we compare this to aversion, if we put these words together, aversion is, like we said before, is a tendency to extinguish a behavior, or to avoid a thing or a situation, usually pleasurable one, because it has been associated with a noxious stimulus. I mean, of course, here we would say aversion as well has this word history in it. So noxious behavior, we have to, or noxious stimuli here, we again see that it has something which we know of which we had thought about it. I mean, this can, as well as feeling of disgust, whatever it is. This is a feeling which we had before, which we know before, and which does not strike us at once. This is very important, because it has a history, and as well as aversion is then a feeling of repugnance towards something, with the desire to avoid it, or turn away from it. This is another definition, and here you have the main difference. I mean, you do not associate yourself with filth or whatever it is. I mean, of course, or with anything, you just turn away from it. You do some sort of disentangle yourself from it. This only becomes part of your identity if you, for example, I don't know, because you are a migrant, or if you're a black man, or if you're African, if you have African appearance, if you're black African appearance, and if you are being called filthy, which is racist, then this has an issue of your identity, because it is then this racial construction of others versus you. This would then be something which then would create an antagonism. Of course, you will not feel pleasure towards someone who describes you as filthy, as foreigner, despicable, whatever it is. So this is the main difference. Of an aversion is something you just don't deal with it. You just don't want to be around it. This is like a smell. I mean, let's say someone farted. This happens. Someone farts. This is a displeasing smell, and you try to avoid it, but you do not identify yourself with it, whatever reason it is. So, whereas anger, again, this is the identity. This goes deeper. This is about your identity. This is about the construction of this other object, which is not you, but as well as which is opposed to you. You do not share the same values or whatever. This is the foreigner in you could say in post-structuralism. This foreigner, this other, which is always construed in you, in your identity. I mean, Lacan said about this foreigner, about this other, which always helps you to construe yourself. I mean, this is of course how you want to see this in the psychoanalysis, in the philosophical construct of the psychoanalysis. But the other, or this Über-Ich, what we said, is very imminent in Freudian society, or in a Freudian approach. This Über-Ich, which can be your parents, how your parents taught you, how your parents brought you up, or as well as society. I mean, this is what the Freudian psychoanalysis always disregards, that society, of course, helps you or demands from you a certain behavior. And we have talked about farting, and a certain behavior is that you do not fart in public places, or at least not among other people, in order to be not disgusting or a noxious behavior in that sense. It is about your upbringing. I mean, of course, interesting is this antagonism, and we will try to analyze this, and especially with what we said before. I mean, I think male culturalism, or whatever reason, or these genders, because genders are as well as your public persona, or how you being perceive others as well as yourself in public. And I think, and we talked about male culturalism and how you construe yourself, especially in that antagonistic way, I mean, to others. I mean, we talked about Turkish migrants in Austria, as well as in Germany, how they construe themselves, because as a Turkish migrant, you are not, of course, fortunate, or sometimes it is self-inflicted, that a Turkish community does not seem to catch up to the German as well as Austrian community. This is, I mean, if you want to compare this to other parts of Europe, especially in UK, if you see in UK how good Indians or people from India as well as from Asia perform in higher education occasion, then you see that the Turkish migrants in Austria as well as in Germany lag behind. Or if you want to compare them to France, the Arabic minority in France, they are way more successful. They are way better integrated in the French society than the Turkish communities in Austria as well as in Germany. And this, of course, is one reason. This is not only about the willingness, but it is, of course, one reason that that it was never intended for them to stay longer, or that they were considered as guests and they would be sooner or later go back. This was the meaning. However, and then this led that Turkish migrants in Austria as well as in Germany, especially men, some sort of understood that they cannot compete with other Austrian or German men, especially for prestige. And in our society, prestige means, of course, that you some sort of accomplish something, that you studious, that you can buy something, or that you be in a position of power. This is very important. So this position of power, being the boss, being able to rule above other people, and people in Austria seems to have fixed themselves on it. However, and then the Turkish migrants, of course, perceived that they can't compete with them, and then they put themselves on a moral pedestal. And this was the fringed area where they could compete with this German and Austrian successes. And this is what that they would be morally pure, that they would have a good reputation. I mean, this is what very, very common among Turkish migrants, the perception that Austrian or German women, that they are all whores, and that they would have as lot as many sexual partners. Of course, we have to be aware that those Turkish migrants, this is what we talked about it as well, as that they came to Europe at that time with this sexual revolution, and people did not know something like that in Turkey before. And of course, this then leads to some sort of a self-understanding on how you perceive yourself. And this is not only that you are being a man, I mean, because of this antagonism between Germans and Austrians, or between Austrians and Turkish migrants. This, of course, leads to an antagonism because of the difference of language, because of the difference of cultures, and this then leads to a perception of manliness. I mean, this is then or another presumption among the Turkish migrants is that Austrian or German men, that they would not be man enough, that they would be too weak, and that their women would rule them, and surreptitiously that Austrian or German women need to be reined in, or that they would surreptitiously look for real men. But this is, of course, the purpose of but however, and from this, some sort of an association chain creates, and this association chain then means being Turkish would be then being morally strong. This is what because you put yourself on a pedestal. This means being Turkish then means that you are morally strong, that you are a man in a way, and so in a way to make out for the disadvantages you perceive, because in Austria as well as in Germany, you see that German men are successful. I mean, one of the reasons is not that you see that German or Austrian people are successful, but this is rather because they're that they put a lot of obstacles on the way of others. I mean, this is something we should not disregard, because one thing is true, that the Austrian society is deeply racist and repugnant in that sense. However, but this association chain then creates itself. So it is not only that it is not about you anymore. It is not about you as a single Turkish man anymore. It is rather about all Turkish men, all, all these migrants. They are then stronger. They are stronger than Germans and Austrians. They are antagonistic, they are opposed to them because they are more manly, they are morally pure, they have only one wife or whatever, and they as well as have family, close family bondages and so on, and this is and then of course this creates an opposition, and this means that being German and Austrian means then being not a man, being weak, and therefore undesirable. I mean, one thing, and we already said it, and it is very, very important that this association chain mostly takes place under circumstances, and we have to repeat it. This is some sort of a mechanism for survival, because you cannot live all day long in a state where you think weak, that you think bad or whatever. No one does it, even though if you survive the trauma, even though you survive a trauma or whatever, you always try to uplift yourself. So this is in a way psychological, but it is as well as your survival mechanism, which then puts you onto a pedestal, because then you would be pretty much devastated, especially if in Austria as well as in Germany, when the German and Austrian societies look down on you or think that you are nothing else than a parasite. This is how you are being perceived in Austria, for example. I mean, this is rampant racism, and we talked about it, and I will never get tired talking about it, because it is very important that people know how despicable the conditions in Austria for migrants are. Everyone is talking about America and about racism, but no one is talking about what's going on in this hellhole in Austria. However, what it is, so this is some sort of a mechanism for your survival. I mean, you cannot live like this. I mean, you cannot always run around. Yeah, look at this. Austrian men are more desirable than Turkish men. No, this is not how it works. This is not, or otherwise you could not live with yourself. And this is actually very, very, very important. And I, despite the fact that it is so important, I only want to talk about it very briefly, and I think we will partially talk about it in desire, or I don't know, but this is actually a very, very important mechanism for your survival mechanism, and this is rather a way how the human mind works, because the human mind is remarkable in that sense, and one thing that is remarkable is that you find ways to motivate yourself, even though it is entirely irrational. Whatever it is, still you can find a way to uplift yourself, uplift your spirits, and that you some sort of can make out for it. I mean, so even though if you are some sort of pushed in on the social periphery, which is happening in Austria as well as in Germany, so but yet still you can create an identity, some sort of a counter identity to the general perception that Turkish people would be despicable, or in Austria they always said that Turkish people would not contribute anything to the culture, only but the incarceration of the women. This is what they said, while the Austrian as well as the German culture did not have any contribution to the world culture. The only thing they did was murder children and lead people in the gas chamber. So I would not assume that this depraved culture is in any way better than anything. whatever it is. I mean, this is hateful indeed. Whatever this is, but this is very interesting at all. I mean, it helps you to manage your day. It helps you. It is not something, I mean, which you some sort of German word for it would be derived from the psychoanalysis would be Verdrängung. Verdrängung. This means that you put something out of your mind, that it does not exist in your conscience anymore. So that you then push it up in your subconscious. I mean, Verdrängung is a very common word, so it is not only, or it did not remain a word in the psychoanalysis, but it has become to popular culture as well. You just disregard something. Now, I would say that this association chain, or in a way some sort of a motivation chain, which then uplifts your spirit, it is happening consciously, but as well as it is a big issue because it determines your behavior, your moral values, and so on. Because if you only consider the migrants in Germany as well as in Turkey, they are even more pious than those people here in Turkey. They are more religious, of course, because here in Turkey, people were not exposed to this cultural perception. People here in Turkey were not exposed to this feeling of alien, feeling of a foreigner. They did not have to create some sort of a culture, some sort of a counter culture to mitigate the impact of racism. I mean, this is what happened in the US as well. I mean, the Afro-American community, they created with hip-hop and with rap, and as well as with partially with their language that addresses some sort of a counter culture, which then they put against this dominant white culture, which then was part of them, which they owned, and in which they were not some sort of undermined or diminished. So in that sense, this counter culture helps you as a shield. It is an umbrella or a shield which protects you from totally being smashed or diminished by the dominant culture. So you do not create, and this is mostly a misunderstanding by stupid leftist people who think that counter cultures would create itself because people are bored or whatever. No, it is a necessity. It is a necessity against the common held belief, or it is a necessity against being pushed on the ferry, against being considered as parasite, whatever it is. So it is in that sense very important that you have to uplift yourself, because then there would be nothing left. So you have to put yourself on a pedestal, or have to make up for it. It's actually very important, especially it is very important how this mechanism works. I mean, if we can, we will talk about this indeed, because it is very interesting how it comes to that, because again, this is something which happens partially, and we right now talk about anger, but it's some sort of in an opposition, but as well as there are as well as very positive counter cultures as well. I mean, especially again with culturalism, you could see this counter culture with French and Italian or whatever. This is some sort of the knowledge of a country, and this is rather positive preserved. And again, it is part of your identity. So in this association chain we said here, it is some sort of uplift, because again, in a society which puts you in a disadvantage, or that you cannot compete with other people for resources, and this resource you want to compete for is, of course, acknowledgement, is success. This is what everyone pardon me, this is what everyone expects from you. I mean, this is, we talked about it with this gender. I mean, the time of militaristic age has ended, but yet people still demand from you as a man that you are being successful, that you accomplished something, that you create something with your hands, whatever it is. So and there it has his in our material world, the only way you can show that you are a man, or that you're studious, that you're laborers, is of course if you acquire goods, wealth, and then show this to people. I mean, how many things you see, especially on social media, how can you see whether someone is wealthy or whatever? I mean, even those rappers like JC, yeah, in the beginning they all made selfies and photos with gold chains. Later they do not have to prove themselves yet. Why? Because everyone knows Jay-Z, because everyone knows what they accomplished, and people measure them through their accomplishments. So nevertheless, you accomplish something, and no one wants to be a nobody, and especially in Austria, the Turkish man, or if you want, racism against the Turkish community was actually so successful that German and Austrian women, they actually do not want to hang around Turkish men. Of course, it is not all that way, but Turkish men have such a low reputation within Austria and Germany, especially. They are being considered as violent, as dominant, as against female emancipation, stupid. So this is another thing. Turkish men are being considered stupid, backward, and whatever you have it. So all this prejudice, this is what a bigot could come up with, some sort of is being put into this. However, and this then of course leads to you that you have to make up for it. I mean, if you cannot attend university, I mean, I was a carpenter, and then later I went to university. The difference is just significant. I mean, you can brag about going to university, acquiring knowledge, but you can hardly brag about being a simple carpenter, because then people say, yeah, what are your plans for the future? Where do you want to live? I mean, of course. However, but one very important thing that we have to clear right away, and this is that the association chain, or this antagonism, where we some sort of built this and created it, this does not incur hate or anger, as we want to say it, some sort of a middle ground. No, because why? Because it is still necessary. I mean, if we talked about it here about a relief, I mean, we talked about it for a reason, so that this association chain, or this antagonism, gives you relief in a way that you are not this hated foreigner or whatever. It gives you some sort of, it boosts your morale or your self-esteem, and it gives you further meaning. So in that sense, the association chain itself is actually helpful. It creates and presumes you hide their identity. And if you only see this in Austria as well as in Germany, Turkish men, they are being considered as violent, as ferocious or whatever. I mean, this is rather by Austrians and Germans considered derogatory or as negative. Nevertheless, the Turkish man and the Turkish community sees this rather as positive, as manly, as being strong, and not as being weak. So this is very important. So out of this, hate does not, or anger does not incur. It is rather some sort of a survival mechanism, which then gives you, is necessary for survival, but hate or anger comes later. And this is what we will have to understand further, or have to inquire further, because we are right now we have some sort of created some sort of antagonism, so as a response. And now, how could we think about hate? How is anger involved in this? Because part of anger is, we said, this pleasure, but here in this association chain, I mean, you are in our example, you get your approval, because this approval you seek in a way or another. I mean, you can see this uh, almost in all branches, and even German as well as Austrian. Austrians adopted this notion that Turkish men are manly, Turkish men are not weak, Turkish men are very aggressive. So this is indeed some sort of this common knowledge, and this is not only about Turkish men, this is as well as about, for example, African American. You always see this in the even in Hollywood, in the media, whatever. This angry black man who then is mad enough. I mean, who doesn't seem to be smart, or this is always how it is portrayed. I mean, they are not very smart or whatever, but they're angry, they are violent, they have and so on, and they then get approval for it. For fight. So even those movies, even those cultural ideologues, whatever, they always some sort of idealize this strong migrant man, this strong Afro-American man, because that's the point or the fringe where they get approval as being a man, and then later as being able to compete with others, with white men. I mean, if you listen to some Afro-American rap songs, hip-hop songs, this is partially, it is about being tough. I mean, it is about hood. I mean, if it only it started with Tupac Shakur, who talked about the issues in the hoods and so on, but it is as well as it was always about being tough, what it means to wake up or grow up in the hoods. And this is what we talked about with this association change. I mean, if you would come along and say, yeah, growing up in the hoods is just shit, I mean, which assumably it is. I mean, like I said, I don't know anything about the hood. The only thing I know is about from sociology and Hollywood. However, but if you would come along and say, the hood is shit, and because growing up in the hood is your life is ruined, whatever. So everything is crap. I mean, you could not live like this. You could not go on like this. Yeah, my life is crap. My life is shit because I grew up in a hood. I didn't have the same opportunities like white men, and I didn't have access to education, whatever. I mean, if you would continue thinking like this, then this would be some sort of a mental slow suicide. But what happened? I mean, and what happened? And this is then the rap counter culture, that this strong man who then rule the hood, and they have made it. They have accomplished something. Yeah, how? Because of money. This is what you always see in those rap songs. This is about money, about cars, about people having success. This is what is pretty much dominating, or in a way being studious in that sense, being criminal, being the head of a gangster crew, whatever. So this is how you some sort of make up for it. This is how you some sort of compete with other men in this new post-war male gender, where as a man you still have to be studious, as a man you have to be successful, and you have to show that you are successful, and this is something you show through goods, or for having anything, or being something. And this is then of course being a gangster, being having accomplished something, driving expensive cars, living in a mansion. And this is what these rap songs then are actually about. And then they say, yeah, we could compete with white folks as well, or we are even better, because this is what rap songs are about it. That we are better than white folks, that we accomplished more than them because we are tough, and so on. Indeed, of a very interesting topic, and we will talk about it further the next time, and because it is really interesting, this association chain. However, this was Adam Kebas from Ordu in Turkey. We are still in the pandemic. I hope that you all take care of yourselves, and goodbye from Turkey.
It's finally time to start firing up the grill. From city to shore, Acme is everything you need to prep for this summer season. Download the Acme app to shop for this season's essentials any way you want. Open the Acme app, clip your deals, then order your items online. An experienced Acme associate will carefully select your groceries, bag your order, and bring it right to your car or deliver right to your door. Download the app or visit acmemarkets.com for program details.